So anyway, everybody, welcome. Of course, this is Doc G Presents, and I want to welcome my guest today, Chuck Bushbeck. He's a uh, sports guy from AM radio in Philly. He's a coach, life coach, something like that. He wrote books. He's been in all kinds of media. Chuck Bushbeck, welcome.
Gene, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Let's talk about you now. How you guys started? What made you want to get in the entertainment industry? I say that to all my friends. But
I think it's just a natural progression. I was in the sports industry for so long, and I guess with modern times, how they're kind of blending together now, where entertainment was entertainment, sports was sports.
Right.
You're finding that that's coming together now, and so I guess it was some years ago where I wanted to do this. I wanted to host a show. It was a different type of show. I didn't want to have the people call in and saying, hey, he shouldn't be quarterback, or, he's got more triple doubles than somebody else. I wasn't interested in that. I really wanted to hear people's minds at work, stories of situations, games they played in, whether they be just informative or downright funny. So that's how I first started this, and then it escalated. I was invited on the ESPN Museum of Sports show with Lou Scheinfeld, who was the vice president of the Philadelphia Flyers. He's the president of the museum now that they're trying to get going here in Philly, vice president of the Sixers. So it's a show that was on for about a year until the COVID hit, and they've been doing a lot of Zoom stuff recently. So and then they just went to WWDB, talk radio in Philly. And that's kind of where it's at. So that's where it started, just a blend from the athletic field into the entertainment field. And then as I was doing that, I've written 2 books and a movie script, which was just recently submitted. So so I'm having a good time. I have a TV pilot too, but I'm not finished it yet.
Yeah, we can talk about that too. I want you to make sure that you give all the listeners and people that will see this on Facebook and YouTube the information on what you've been doing, how you've been doing it. And I know sports, entertainment, and entertainment together. I mean, I'm going to be talking to hopefully a guy named Jack Lord on Friday. He's an old-time wrestler. He's been the old-time WWF wrestlers.
Right.
And he's got a lot of stories. He says, I don't have no problem with stories for you guys. And I'm sure you do too, right, Chuck?
Yeah, I got a couple. From growing up, and just some coaches, some players that were fun to be around, some circumstances that came about. Some I can talk about, some I can't. But yeah, I'd be willing to share those if we go down that rabbit hole, I guess.
Sure, go ahead. Be my guest.
There's a number of things. I think one of the most notable things, which I found humorous, was this is when I was scouting with the Los Angeles Angels, and I was there part-time guy for about 11 years, and I had the experience of seeing Mike Trout play, who obviously whoever, depending on who you talk to, but most say he's probably the best player in baseball. Mm-hmm. And so his freshman year I saw him. He's in a small town in New Jersey, but I liked him. There was nothing that he did just was sensational. Good speed, good arm, he could hit. But it wasn't until senior year that the funny story came out after I submitted it to our boss, who later left. Someone else came on board. His name was Greg Morehart, and he was a scout for the Angels, and he's the one that eventually signed Mike. But we were at a scouting combine in Flemington, New Jersey, and this is where all the major league scouts are. So some of the people are coming up to me and asking me about Trout. And I said, it was weird because I don't know why they were asking, but apparently some of their opinions were, well, we hope he's going to be an everyday player. We're not sure if he's going to, flourish out and, and be the guy we want him to be. And I turned to my boss and I'm like, I know we don't pick to the 25th pick, but I think we got a pretty good chance we might grab Mike based on what I'm hearing. So we went along, and sure enough, we had 2 picks, and Mike just happened to be the second of our first round picks, and we picked them up. And I was just surprised about how many scouts passed on him in the first round because they didn't see him the way, especially my boss saw him
Right.
as a dude. And obviously, I didn't think he was going to be the greatest player in baseball, but I thought he was going to be a very good player. And he's just he's outdone himself. And he's one of the guys I look to that just he's one of the kids that just loves to play the game, and you can see it in his face. The way he goes after fly balls, he leaps tall buildings at a single bound over the home run fence. He runs like a deer. He just loves playing the game, and it shows in his game, and that's why he's arguably the greatest player in baseball right now.
Oh wow, that's really cool. So technically, you're just you're friends with a lot of these people, right? That play sports, and you're in their face type of thing. You're always asking them questions. Is there a certain question that you know that can trigger them?
Well, I do a number of things with the athletes. I work in particularly on the physical realm with baseball players, whether it be pitching, hitting, whatever. But I also deal with athletes on the mental side of the game, and that's why I wrote this book called Quiet Toughness. And I kind of what I try to do is blend the mental side in with the physical reality side, because in sports, you can talk about, your mentality, because a lot of ball players are really just about, well, that's how far I hit the ball. That's what my velocity was. And, it gets you so far. But if you don't, as Roy Halladay say, don't control the mental game, you're not going to go very far in professional sports. Right. So I've played them all. I played hockey. I played football in the professional level in the USFL. I don't know if you remember that, with the Memphis Showboats. That was a spring league that rivaled the NFL for a couple of years. Went to Villanova. I played a little bit of baseball there. I was a soccer player. I was going to what they call Textile here. They were #1 team in the country. So I'm pretty well-rounded with sports and how the athlete thinks. So what I do now is I work with athletes on the mental side of the game to get them prepared for what they're trying to achieve in their life. But also the baseball players, I do the same thing, but I'm more hands-on into how the physical body works and the mechanics behind pitching, velocity, movement, location, and keeping the arm safe, but also hitting, what gives you the best bat path. So I do the physical side with the athletes, but on the other sports, I really get into the mental side, whether it be team building. I'm doing businesses now. We're going in and we're showing people how to mentally get control of their mind, so they can bring their best game to their job, which the employers really like. But I also work with the employers saying, hey, this is how we need to change to look at your employees. They're the people that are really getting the job done, even though, you're out there in front of all this trying to make something happen. But it's the soldiers behind you that actually, and they need to be motivated to do that. And hopefully we switch from motivation, was the big thing I do, to inspiration, where the employer or the athlete is inspired to do what they have to do instead of just a coach or a mentor or someone trying to motivate them, because that won't last very long. As soon as difficulties come up in life, if you don't have something solid to hold on to, a vision for where you want to be, it's going to be very difficult to hold down the discipline to make it happen.
That's so true. So true. I love the fact that, you're not afraid to get your hands in there and get dirty and get down sometimes and do what you have to do.
I think sports, I'm not saying it doesn't, a lot of things will teach you that. I've had a lot of great mentors, coaches, my parents in particular, who are no longer with us, but there's people that come into your life that offer you information, and it teaches you something about life while you're playing sports. And I think, thank God I had that, because I went through a very difficult situation. My senior year in college. I had this is one of those stories, right? And I have to keep this one short because I wrote a whole book about it.
No, that's right. I get it. No, give us a little idea. That's
So I'm at Villanova University. I was a 3-year starter there already, and on the verge of rewriting school records, and have a couple still. and I was up for preseason All-American. And if you know anybody that knows anything about Villanova, they dropped intercollegiate Division I football in 1981. And all of a sudden, I had no school unless I didn't want to play football. Well, I wanted to play football. I wanted to play pro football. And I was recruited by East Carolina, a number of schools, but East Carolina University in North Carolina is where I ended up going. And then in a routine physical, not only the news of ending my football career at Villanova, I find out I had cancer.
Oh, wow.
I had Hodgkin's disease, and there was a protocol to follow. And I didn't want to follow the protocol, which was basically, we're taking your spleen out, you're done for the season. And, you know, with a lot of thought that went into it, a lot of emotion behind this, I said, that's not what I'm doing. We're going to find another way around this. I'm playing this year, despite how many people told me not to. I felt that this was what I was meant to do. And I did end up playing the whole year, collegiate football year, and had a really good year. And I was on ABC, Prudential College Scoreboard back then.
Nice.
It was a big deal. And it drew a lot of attention to the school, to myself. And I was just happy to share some of my thoughts about what I went through for other cancer related individuals that were dealing with the pain of chemotherapy, radiation. And I wanted to try to help in some way. But I really had a strong feeling that I didn't want to quit on this because I had a disease. I wanted to keep working through it. And it's chronicled. I'm going to do a little bit. This is my book, Full Armor. It tells the story of that situation from growing up as a city kid in Philadelphia, as they call them, the concrete alleyways of Philadelphia, and how I went through what I went through and ended up my senior year at East Carolina.
Wow, that's a story and a half.
It is, and there's still things that occur today on the health side that was a result of treatments I got back then. So you're always being challenged in this life, and it's good to have a good mindset for the tools to deal with those things, so you can continue moving forward in a direction that you feel you want to keep going in with your life and be happy and do all the things you want to do while you're here.
Yeah, Chuck, that's another question. How many times do you actually take advice from other people? Because I be honest with you, I listen to people all the time, and I either discern it, or I say, well, that's something I can definitely do. Do you actually do that, or do you make your decisions based on your own findings? Because I know a lot of people that do both.
I don't think any of us are smart enough to be a pessimist. So I will tell you how I started with this. I grew up in a Catholic school, Father Judge in Northeast Philadelphia, and you're indoctrinated with certain religious beliefs. And I think what happened to me as a junior in high school, I really fell in love with psychology. I wanted to know why that person failed and why that person was successful and why. And I didn't even care what my grade was. I was just happy to be in class. I had a great teacher.
Right.
His name was Joe Valley. And I simply said to him, I said, I don't care what my grade is. I love being in this class. I'm not going to miss it. So, here I am, this this athlete who's got a lot of credentials behind him, and I'm a nerd in the psychology class, right? So I took that and I said, I want to know, and that's the name of Full Armor. And as growing up, we were indoctrinated with, the Bible and verses and chapters from there. And there was a thing in Ephesians called "Put on the full armor of God," and it never left me. And it's become my mantra today. And they call it marketing now or branding. But bottom line is, I wanted to know what that meant, and I heard what the interpreters of that scripture were.
Right.
And I said, it's not working for me. I understand what they're saying, but I need to find it for myself. And I went on this quest for the Holy Grail, right? I wanted to know what it was all about. I wanted to know what life was all about. And this spirituality that I was feeling through some of the teachers that, put books out and things like that. But what happened is it went into science. It went into biology. It went into neurology. It went into quantum physics. It went into epigenetics. All these scientific things that we now have available to us. Because I really became a science guy, and I wanted to know if I'm going to listen to you, I need to know this is a fact, okay? And this is the science that behind it. It's called peer-reviewed science.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can show me that, then I'm on board. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to my mindset. But what the interesting thing here, Gene, is it brought me back. The science supported my spirituality. So I got the best of all those worlds. So what I listen to now is not what I think works or what the dinner conversation might be,
Mm-hmm.
but the practical experience that has occurred in my own life, and the individuals that are teaching the new science that is showing us our way as human beings on this planet and what needs to change, and how do we change it. And this comes down to dealing with a lot of people with some real serious illnesses, to people that want to have a career that they're having a difficult time getting to, or maybe you're on drugs or alcohol and you're finding that it's very biological now, and you're having a hard time changing your life because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I identify two things in my book, Quiet Toughness. It's energy and information. If you understand what the energy is about and you have the information, you can put it together and you can pretty much figure out what's going on and how to get to where you want to get to.
I love the fact that you know, the spiritual part of Chuck, you reached down deep inside and pulled out something that, you had to look for. You just couldn't. It was something that you had to find,
Mm-hmm.
and you did it.
Well, there's this guy, Albert Einstein. Have you ever heard of him before?
Oh yeah.
Energy equals everything, basically. And we're energetic beings. We're spiritual beings or non-physical beings in this physical body. And I think what some of the problem, I don't want to go into politics or anything like that, but what we're experiencing today is that physical reality where we're not using our mind and heart together.
Right.
We're looking at what's out in front of us and we're reacting to it. And that's why I like to see, and I've talked about this with numerous people about school curriculums changing, teaching people how to think differently,
Mm-hmm.
getting their body in alignment with their heart and their mind and the heart coming together, and making great choices and becoming healthy and things like that. So I understand the principles and I've applied them in my own life, and I speak about it in my book I showed earlier, Quiet Toughness, where from the radiation treatments that we spoke about earlier, back in college, did some damage to my heart later on in life now.
Oh, right.
And it got to the point where, I had two arteries, one on the heart wall, one right off of it, where they were clogging, but it wasn't my diet. It was just stenosis and what they told me was, this is the result of treatments that you had back in 81. And I guess I'm somewhat on board with that, but I was recommended after these things kept clogging, after medicine wasn't medicine saved my life, but medicine didn't continue it. I had to find another way because I was heading down to be on the donor list for getting a new heart. This is just a couple years ago. And I decided I was going to go another route. So I really got into the science of thinking, meditation, whatever you want to call it. I call it Quiet Toughness because the athletes are kind of like, it's a little better branding for them to understand. But I learned how to quiet my mind and change the physical reality of my body.
Right.
And since I did that, I didn't need a new heart. I'm currently off the one medication that they did have me on, and my heart is doing great right now. I just came from the gym before your show, hour and 15 minutes on the treadmill, just kicking it. And I thank God that this information became available to me, but it was a quest on my part to go find it. And it was funny how you go look for something, it's there, it'll show itself to you. You just have to put yourself in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, and that's the key to life, right? I mean, the frame of mind is all about common sense and what you're doing and what you've known. And the hardest thing, I think, Chuck, for us is learning new things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that new things help us and new things will be out there and new things will work. and a lot of them have been tested and trusted. But as you said, we're frequency. Frequency, meeting frequency will fix frequency. It will fix the parts in our bodies. I mean, you and I maybe never see that. You got to, the reality of that is we may never see that, but our children may, and our grandchildren, whoever generations are coming up may. So they benefit from knowing at least they have hope that they will. Someday we will. You know, we don't know.
Well, in studying the sciences that I have, there's a thing called epigenetics. I don't know if you ever heard of
I
it
am
before.
familiar with that, yes.
It's called the biology of belief, and this all started back in the 60s with stem cell research and things like that. We now know, and this is the stuff that's not necessarily mainstream right now. It is being taught a little bit about how we're not just geared by our DNA, that the proteins that our body is producing has a lot to come from thought. And are the thoughts good or bad, for lack of a better word? And can we upregulate genes when we feel good, we're in love, or we got a great job and things like that? And we can also downregulate genes by bringing in weaker proteins that don't help our cell structure, which leads to illness. So the obvious question is, if our thoughts can hurt us and make us sick, can they make us well? Well, the science says yes, they can make us well.
I don't think they can yet, too.
So we now know that our thoughts, and if you can understand the premise of taking time in our busy lives. I was one of them. I'm a physical guy. I'm an athlete. I'm working with athletes.
Right.
If you can, but what I've learned is to take time, especially in the morning, when the brain waves are more ready to go, if you will. Take that time and lock in. Just like a cell phone, when you charge it, you're charging your energy, you're charging your battery. We wouldn't think anything, or we would have a problem with walking out of our house and our cell phone's not charged, right? We'd be like, oh my God, I gotta get this charge, right? I can't live without my cell phone. Well, we as human beings are a cell phone in our own nature, and we need to plug in every morning so that our temperament through the day is different than it would be if we didn't do that. And now all of a sudden, maybe stress isn't as prevalent as it is. Maybe the opportunity, the open door appears before us. The illness doesn't hook us when we stopped it at an earlier stage before it, as you said, got rolling. It didn't come out of the blue. It was started a long time ago, and then it shows up in physical reality, and you say, oh my gosh, how did that get here? Well, it didn't just get here. It started a long time ago, and we, whether you, me, or whoever, we didn't have the information or the understanding to stop it in its tracks. So it got momentum, and now it's in our body. So now physically we have to treat it, we think. And that's where my studies in science say that's fine if we need to do that right now, but eventually we're going to come to the point where we're going to understand energy better, and we're going to understand that our mind is the best pharmacy out there.
Yeah. In fact, I was going to tell you, I think the cell phones, the more connected we are, the more disconnected we are, because we're disconnected to the universal properties around us. We're disconnected to the nature around us. I much rather have nature myself. It's natural. The grounding, earth grounding, is very important to people's bodies. I did a lot of research on this myself, and I can tell you that just the negative ions that go out of your body when you relax and breathe and meditate in the Earth's atmosphere, as you're supposed to, all the good things come to you based on what you put out there, right? Like a karma effect.
Yeah.
Echoing, right?
Well, it's attraction, and this is where
a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, what?
We are vibrational beings, and we are full of energy. And I think it's pretty easy to understand why people like to be camping in the woods and trees. And I don't know if you're one of those guys that takes your shoes off and walks on the ground to feel,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
to feel the ground more. But I like the beach and the negative ions you get from the sun, the water, the beach. there's something that draws everybody there, right? Because everybody sits on the beach and does nothing other than maybe jump in the water. And there's a reason why it feels good to be there. So I think it's a double-edged sword. Technology has brought us things like we're doing right now. Who would have thought this, me growing up, that we'd be talking like this?
Exactly.
Except maybe Star Trek, and they were pioneers back then.
Yeah.
But that's what we're dealing with. And it's time that we understand that every mechanism that we're on, cell phone, computer, TV, is all energy. And if we as human beings understand that we're the same mechanism as you plug in your phone, okay, then we can start understanding why our minds think the way they do, why we get sick, and why we get the things in our life that we do, good or bad. And the science is showing us the way, I think. And it's a great bridge back to spirituality, which I think we've lost a lot of in this mechanistic society. And as you say, to go to your point, you love being out in nature. It takes you a place where, being on a subway train can't. So I think a lot of people get that, but my hope is to bring this kind of information, not as a scientist, but to point people like myself, Joe Plumber, to where the information is, and that's the people that are doing the science behind it, the neurophysicists, the heart math people who understand the vibration of the heart and how it's produced, how it's magnetic, and how you actually draw things into your life, or you actually repel things from your life. It's the new science, and hopefully we start implementing it soon, because the old structure as we know it is falling apart.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be around much longer. So as much as we're going through this right now, we will come out on the end of it. I don't know how much more of this thing we're going to go through, but eventually, I'm not sure when it's going to happen, we will find another better way to live, or else we have some serious other issues we're going to be dealing with.
Yeah, that's the other problem. A lot of before COVID, I got to be honest with you, a lot of everybody took everything for granted, and just, went their daily thing, and, we went to a restaurant and ate, and we got sick and we didn't know why. And, people aren't handling the food correctly. People aren't preparing the food correctly. And even though you don't want to blame the restaurant, even though you want to blame the people working there because they need jobs, the thing is, was it just us or was it that? Nobody knows. So when you have a situation like COVID, now they're much more astute to how they serve the food, much more astute how they prepare the food, much more astute of how you get the food, and they're afraid of lawsuits. So in a way, it's brought us a cleaner, healthier product to the public. And it should have been that way all along, but because when you hire certain people, they may not know what's going on. It's not their fault. They're not taught correctly. So in preparing the food or doing stuff like that, you find out, oh my God, this person had a stomach virus. Where'd they get it from? Well, they ate here, and they know how to trace the stuff down, So this is, I think, going to give us a little bit perspective on at least that. I'm not saying everything, but at least that. And then maybe also minor health issues. Everybody's going to be more astute of, or more acknowledging more that, okay, I've got a problem. Let me go get it taken care of. And they're going to have people to jump the gun on everything anyway. You have the two sides. You have the one extreme on this side and one extreme on that side. So it's a little bit of both. But I think we're all like coming towards the middle now, at least with the COVID, and understanding what it is, where it came from, and all that. But again, there's two parties on that too. So I don't want to get into that. But I'm just saying that, virus-wise, we're very, very more watchable about it. And I think that's important, because of anything with little kids, pets, family around you, It's always good to be doing. And I was always that way. I was always the one that used an extra napkin to grab something, because I was told that when my grandmother told me. And I'm like, why doesn't anybody else do that? They use their hands. They stick their hands in something, and then nobody thinks about it. So the next person comes along and does the same thing, and now you've got a whole cacophony of viruses. Think about it. In a bowl of pretzels, in a Super Bowl game, sitting at your friend's house watching the Super Bowl. All of us guys did the same thing. We dug our hands in. It's you don't do them things. You know what I mean?
There's a physical reality to this, and I can go back to college. I remember this my freshman year at Villanova, and we were doing camp in August, and it was hot, and we had salt tablets and things like that. But we were still using water bottles, and everybody was passing around the water bottles until they said, "Wait a minute, everybody's getting sick," and that's when we started using cups, and everybody had individual cups. So when I talk about energy and information, what you just got done saying, that's the information side of this. You're getting information about our physical reality and how it affects us, and we're learning how to do better with the COVID thing now. But everything is energy, okay? Everything is energy. This virus, despite the political things that are going on behind the scene, which I don't want to get into.
Right.
This is an energetic system, and the human body has gone through, oh my God, zillions of years of dealing with bacteria, and that's how the body has survived all this time. So as I did my research on this, when the virus is prevalent, there's an energetic level to that virus, and what they're trying to do now is give you medicine that's going to help your immune system be stronger energetically to defeat the nervous system. To defeat the COVID, right? So that's what we're trying to get to, this cure, which I don't think it's going to be a cure, but I think it's going to be something that's maybe something along the way of helping us deal with this virus. And in the meantime, we've learned about preventive healthcare. We learned about preparing food properly and how we're doing that. But I don't think these viruses are going to go away. But I do think understanding what it is and how, as we as a species can improve our immune system, okay? And we're not talking about that enough. We're not talking about vitamin A, C, D. We're not talking about zinc.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're not talking about the stressors. There's three stressors in life. There's physical, there's emotional, and there's chemical. And if you have a chemical stress, maybe during this time you've drank quite a bit, and you're putting that chemical stress on your immune system. Maybe you're stressed out. Your immune system is another stressor that will affect your immune system. Maybe it's medical. Maybe you've got a bad heart, and we know all about the cases where they're moving people into the nursing homes. Well, if your immune system is any one of those three or all of them, dealing with that before you even get the virus's energy is more than what your immune system can handle. And that's what we're seeing the problem with. So I would hopefully eventually like to see people learn more about their immune system, to how to be better at maintaining a healthier immune system physically and mentally. And that's why I think us going and just not just looking at the facts of what's happening, but training our minds to train our immune systems to be stronger. I think that's going to be a pivoting point moving forward past all this.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So let's talk a little bit more about sports. So who have you interviewed?
Bill Berge, Bernie Perron, Jerry Kramer was just on our show just recently. Got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I started going off and doing some more in the entertainment field. Doug Schimel, two-time Emmy Award winner. John Bolaris, and he was a Channel 6 weather guy, and I went into some crazy stories that went along with him. We've had Lou Nolan, the public address announcer for the Flyers, and just lots of Kevin Riley, a good friend of mine. He used to play for the Eagles, does a lot of motivational talks now. He lost his arm to a desmoid tumor.
Oh,
and he
wow.
goes around, which I find just incredible. You know, he was telling a story. You talked about stories, right? He's telling me the story. He's in the hospital, and who come visits him but Rocky Blyer. And right before that, he he tells me that he's gotten all this well-meaning information, people, about how limited he's going to be now that he's lost his arm and 5 ribs. And Rocky Blyer came in and talked to him and says, beware of experts. You know, the Titanic was built by experts. The Ark was built by amateurs. Uh, the experts are not always right. And so I love how he goes around now and goes in audience businesses, IBM, you know, I think he worked at IBM, and explains how he can do things even though you think you have physical limitations. And he goes in with one arm and says, you know, people told me I could never tie a tie ever again. I need a clip on and pick out a good one. Well, he goes in there with one hand and shows people he can tie his tie with one hand now.
I love that.
It's quite, it just goes to show the resiliency of the human mind,
Yep.
the human spirit, when it's put under duress, and how we can come out and do incredible things. Even the times that we're in right now, is learn from it and move forward and just create a better world for ourselves, you know, and help people along the way. And that's what I'm trying to do now, is trying to work not only with athletes, but even business people. I mean, you know, I've dealt in 30 years of behavioral health. I've dealt with a lot of child welfare stuff where, you know, I'm literally going in trying to figure out, where is this family going to sleep tonight? Where is this family going to get food from?
Wow.
And, but also with that, dealing with mental illness, with chronic schizophrenia,
Yeah.
and really had hardcore depression. But coming out of that and getting back into my athletic end, I'm dealing with $1 million athletes, people that are multi-millionaires,
Yeah.
that are just crashed and burned since the COVID and are having a hard time. So I've done a lot of Zoom calls on the side, trying to work with these so-called millionaires that have it all. But when the end comes, you know, their blood pressure's through the roof, or they're
Right.
being hospitalized. So it's a balance to life. Learn to understand, and they're very smart people, and that's kind of like, I guess, the information side. They know how to do the stock market. They know how to make investments. They know what a good business plan looks like. But without your health, it really doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah. The whole key.
So we want to balance the two, not be one instead of the other, but put an understanding together what gives our life quality. And that comes into relationships, what we do with our careers, not only financially, but who are the people that we're around, who is meaningful in our lives, who have we touched. And it goes into, you know, people that want to lose weight or want to look a certain way. We got to balance the two. And I'm hopefully our education system starts bringing in more of the neurological heart math side that explains why our mindset is so important, how we are spiritual beings having an earth experience and not just three-dimensional beings living in this flypaper thing that we call life and think there's no way out. Our mind can take us to a lot of places that can help us with our physical reality. I hope this kind of talk with you, and this is why I was so happy to come on your show, because you deal with this stuff. You're cutting edge.
Yeah, I try to
You're
be.
not the ESPNs, you're not the, you know, the Fox Network, but you get to stories that this is where they start. And like I said, I have 40 years of experience doing this. I'm not coming just from this loincloth guru meditation side, but I've been in the physical reality of entertainment and sports, where there is a physical reality. If you don't do your work, you don't get to the gym, you don't work on your mechanics, you're not going very far. But to think that's all there is, you're short-sighted. And that's why I love bringing this information out on your show. And I want to thank you again for the people, not only the artists that you bring on, but people like myself that know differently now, where I was all hardcore reality. And now I need to take a spiritual approach to heal my heart and to heal my health. And I'm a much better person because of it.
No, that's great. I just got one more question, and we can go a little bit longer if it's up to you. But I wanted to ask you, who would you have interviewed if they didn't pass away?
They
talking
didn't
about,
pass away
yeah, if you're talking about sports now. We're staying on the sports subject.
on the sports side. Okay.
You're talking about announcers. You're talking about baseball players, football players. I mean, there's a whole a mess of people that I know I would have loved to interview. That before they died.
Okay. And they have to
Not
be
not
dead,
not
right?
not, not necessarily before they died, but like in their prime. And before they died, because they always had one last thing they wanted to say, and you would be that one person that they could say it to.
I never thought about that. I did the show and I heard a lot of people's backstories um, from people that are still alive today. Like I just brought up when Jerry Kramer was on the
Right,
show.
right.
Incredible year with the Packers, Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi. I would love to hear from a guy like that about Vince Lombardi's stories. What it was like in the frozen tundra. You know, so as far as dead athletes, tough question. I don't think I've ever asked that question.
Sometimes I ask weird ones, but it's just part of the thing. I don't ask dirty ones or dish up the dirt. It's just basically just an extra thing to throw out there. That's all.
Um, I'd say a Joe DiMaggio maybe type of guy, a Lou Gehrig type of guy, Jackie Robinson type of guy, only to hear what that life was like back then. But in guys that are still alive, I think a guy I want to, and even though I've read his book, I would like to talk to a Michael Jordan. I would like to talk to a Chase Utley. I would like to talk to any Tom Brady. I want to hear how their mind works. I want to hear their behavior patterns of how they thought. Coaches, players alike. I don't know if I have one particular guy, but I mentioned a couple that I would love to hear from. So I don't know. I'm going to think about that though, and maybe get you back with an answer. I'm like, oh, I should have said that on the air,
Okay,
but
you can come back anytime. If I can get the Zoom working back on Facebook, listen, technology one day works, the next day it don't. I mean, it happens all the time. They do things, they put things in apps, they change things, they change drivers, they change this, they change that, and if you're not up on it, you don't understand it, you're going to be lost. And sometimes it can happen like this. It happens to us in the studio too. It can happen like this, or it never has a problem. Now I can go to the studio tonight and do a show, and it'd be fine. So is it just on my laptop? Is it something that updated? Is it
well, you know what? You asked me if I wanted to come on the show again, and I would say to you, how far do you want to go down the rabbit hole with all this stuff? Because we can we can go very deep
I
with
love
this
the
stuff.
rabbit hole. You know why? Because that's where all the information is that we are hidden from. So I'll be Alice in Wonderland. I love that. I don't have a problem with that at all. You can go down the rabbit hole. Listen, this is part of who you are inside. So if you feel comfortable, and you see, I get that from people all the time. Why didn't I say that? Why didn't I say this? Well, here's your time. Think about what you want to say and say it. There's no reason why you can't speak your mind. There's no reason why you can't get down the rabbit hole. There's no reason why the structure is holding us back. The only one reason why is because we're afraid. Fear either motivates you or kills you. It kills the inside of who you are, which I know it never did to me. I'm still the same person I've always been, and I've always tried to be compassionate and passionate to people, but at the same time, I don't let fears change that style. So whether it's a corporation, company, or whatever, saying, listen, this is what you got to do, this is the way you got to do it, okay, as long as it's within my guidelines. If it's out of my guidelines, I'm out of your company. I'm out of your Facebook. I'm out of your this. I'm out of your that.
Yeah.
And I see some things that are not gelling with my spirituality, as we were talking earlier, and then I'm just going to say, well, you know what? I guess I don't need that. My spirituality is way more important than being on a format,
Yeah,
That's just the way I feel. Not everybody.
No, you're spot on. You mentioned the word fear, and I actually, in my book, Quiet Toughness, I wrote 22 emotions, all the way starting at appreciation and compassion, all the way down to shame and depression. You know, you mentioned fear, and fear is part of that. We're all, and if we're just looking at three-dimensional reality, who wouldn't be afraid, right? I
Right.
mean, we're
You're right.
looking what's around us,
Yeah.
like, I can't stop that. And all of a sudden that we make that our own. So what you said about spirituality, if I don't like this, it doesn't feel right, it feels off, I'm out of here. So that's your heart talking.
That's right.
Okay, that's
That's right.
when you're out of your clinical mind and you're talking from your heart and they're working together. You see what you see out in front of you. That don't feel right. Okay, and that doesn't mean you're a quitter or anything like that. But if we could all move forward to take that quiet time in our life and coordinate our mind and our heart together, where we can actually quiet the mind and feel the emotions of the heart more,
Right.
it would benefit our mind when we do have to go up and go to work. We get our coffee, we get on the subway, we meet people, we're in business transactions all day. If we could learn how to move up the emotional scale. So I would say that, and I've talked to so many, I've been on a couple of rehab programs that, you know, people, whether they're struggling with alcohol,
Mhm.
drugs, overeating, whatever the, over shopping,
Right.
whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And you realize that they're in a biological part of themselves that's fueling some of this.
Right.
And what I tell them, I said, if it, you know, I mean, sometimes it's good to get angry to get the energy moving, to get
Right.
out of that place.
Right.
But you don't want to be in shame. You don't want to be in total fear. You don't want to be in depression. Sometimes anger is a great thing, and if you do it correctly,
Mhm.
and move out of those lower vibrations, those lower energies, and move it up. And if you can get to hope, you know, where you can see the other side,
Right.
you've come out of it, and then you can work toward appreciation, gratitude, passion. It's very hard to just say to people, pull yourself out of your bootstraps and get moving. It's very easy for someone who's thinking that way to say that, but people that are really struggling need to come up the emotional scale. So what I try to do is get them to reach for something a little higher. Maybe it's a little anger. Maybe it's getting to the point of frustration. At least you're not in that lower emotion anymore, and now your life can move forward. Because I guarantee if you stay down there and then the medications start coming on top, you're going to find it a very difficult place to come out of. So if we can get to people earlier, before, as you mentioned, the
Right.
momentum kicks in, the illness kicks in, we can stop it earlier, then maybe, just maybe, we can help people move forward in their lives and they wouldn't be so fearful to be doing things in their life they wish maybe later on they hadn't.
Right.
So it's a great point you make about listening
Thank
to
you.
your heart, and we all need to do that because we're the only people we take around with us,
That's right.
and we
That's
need to. So many people that have come to me say they're experts. Well, I've listened to a lot of experts, and I wound up on the wrong end of that. And now I listen to my instinct. I listen to my heart. And if someone comes out of the, not out of the blue, but you know, I've drawn them to me in some way, then I can listen to them in a different heart, a different mindset,
Well, that's
and
beautiful.
now they can actually help me.
Oh
But
yeah.
you know, but other people say, "This is what I know. This is what you're going to do," and I said, and I went along with it. I found out that's not the way it goes. Uh, so take the time. What I would say before we run off the air,
Sure.
take the time. I don't care if it's night, during the day. I do it at different times. But when you first wake up, your brain waves are in a certain type of pattern. And if you really want to improve your health, get up a little earlier before you get on the cell phone, before you get your coffee. But if you got to get your coffee, so what? Don't get on technology. Don't put the TV on until you've calmed your mind right after that and sat there quietly with who you are,
Right.
and change the way you look at the world. And there's all kinds of things out there right now that's in my book, Quiet Toughness, that I make references to. And it really will, because I'm not the scientist in all this, but I am the conveyor of the information of the science because I've dealt with it for 40 years, practical experience and research. So I think I'm pretty good at coming and talking to people about this stuff. As far as the X's and O's, as we would say in football, there are X's and O's to science. And but if we start understanding science more than what's been introduced in our classroom, it'll demystify the mystical of what's happening, and people will be more receptive to that. And that's my hope and prayer for my kids, my grandchildren coming.
Right.
I want them to live in a world that understands this and how they live their most fulfilling life that they can find.
Well, I would put it in this perspective, and I'll let you go. What I take from that is we're on a field, and we're a football team. We are the person trying to get through all the blockers. I played football for years too, so we're trying to get that end goal.
Knees, Gene?
What's that?
You got bad knees and knuckles and things like that?
No, but see, I went into baseball. I did football
okay.
in a little bit of junior high, and then I went right into baseball, and then I went into Babe Ruth. But my whole life is different. It's like a cacophony of things. It's just like so many different things. Music, vocal music, trumpet, playing baseball. I was never shy for anything. I could do anything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But that's because I always put myself at that elevation where I figured that if I wanted to do it and I could do it, I would do it. I would at least try it, and then I always tell my kids the same thing. At least if you try it and you don't like it, you'll know, rather than never going through life and figuring, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? So at least try it if you don't like it. But we're that football team that's trying to get up that, field, and we're trying to get to the next 5 yards, 10 yards, whatever it is. And these blockers keep coming, blocking us. And we're going around them. We're looking for alternatives. We're trying to find a way around. And we're not down, because spiritually, our spiritual body is still moving straight through. No matter what, even if we don't get to the end zone, we're still spiritually moving that way. So the thing in life that I see is we all have to work together as one unit, one football team together, and make everything work for each other, not just for ourselves, for each family member, for each community member, for each state person that's around us. Now, we don't have to believe in all the same thing, but we all have to agree that whatever we believe in, or whatever they believe in, we respect, and we respect each other for whatever they want to think. That's fine. No, arguments, no disagreements, just we're here as brothers and sisters to help each other get to that spiritual part. So that's the football team that I talk about. We're going to have blockers, but we get through the blockers. Each blocker is another type of situation. Could be the COVID, could be the, no job. It could be this, could be that. But we find that if we stay on that straight and narrow, Uncle used to tell me, if you stay on the straight and narrow, kid, you'll never have a problem, because you'll always find there's going to be another job. You always have hope that there's going to be another job. You always have hope that COVID's going to go away. Things are going to get back to some kind of normal. Not maybe the real normal that we originally remembered, but a different normal. A normal of once we relax and breathe and meditate the way we want to, and feel good about ourselves and feel good about helping others, and the spirituality will just take us right through. And that's all we have to do.
Well, you use an interesting analogy, football, and that's a total team sport, obviously.
Absolutely.
And when I go talk to groups and businesses and things like that, I use football as an analogy, because it's just not showing up on the field, running your play. You get the information of what's the defense doing against us.
Right.
Right. What did they run at us? So you do planning ahead of time, and that planning helps with your game plan for that day, so you can execute easier.
Correct.
Well, that's my parallel to our lives. We take the time in the morning to do that work, so that it incorporates into our everyday life, so that we're just not running into big linemen. Okay, we're learning how to block them. We're learning how to get around the end, and it becomes so much easier to achieve our dreams in life. And if you do the work in the morning, you're not going to run against something that you're going to run into that's going to stop you from where you're going, and now you have no options. No, you're going to plan your day first, so that when you do run into those things, you know how to get around, or those things, and this is where we get down the rabbit hole, those things that normally would show up in our lives because we've changed our energy thinking wise,
Right.
they no longer show up in our life.
Right.
Maybe
right.
that guy that we got in the traffic accident with didn't happen because we changed our vibration, and that guy never showed up that day. There's a lot of things
Yeah,
that
you're
we
right.
can go
Right.
deep into, which is not, we don't have anywhere enough time for that
No,
show,
I know that. I know that.
but this is kind of an introduction. And but I like that analogy used with the football because it's so relevant to how we live our lives.
Absolutely. So, Chuck, we're going to end it. Just give me a little bit of information for our listeners and people on Facebook so they could find where can they get the book, how can they get it, and how can
The
they get in touch with
easiest,
you.
yeah, the easiest thing to just go to my website, www.chuckbushbeck, bushbeck.com. You'll see a bunch of headings. You'll see the book all over the place. The book is sold on Amazon, Quiet Toughness and Full Armor. But I also have a baseball page there if you want me to work with athletes in the cages or out in the field, or just work with athletes on the mindset or talk to corporate businesses. The information's there to contact me, and we just put a plan together and we make it happen.
Beautiful. All right, Chuck, I got to say thank you. Great job. Sorry about the Zoom thing, but I'll get this show over to you as soon as possible. Maybe you can put it on your YouTube channel or anything like that. And we'll talk again.
Gene, thanks so much. And again, I can't express how appreciative I am to be on your show because of the things that you try to do. And your goal here is to help people. And I salute you for the sometimes difficult days that we have, that you have putting this production together. And it means a lot to a lot of people. And who knows who may listen to something that they may not have heard of somewhere else. So I applaud your efforts, and thank you again for
so
having
much,
me on.
Chuck. I really appreciate that. It's been a pleasure, and thank you. And please, anytime you need me or you need us to just comment or something, let me know.
Okay. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.